Moving on now to the homestead property taxes. All indications are pointing to possible cuts, not elimination. What started out as more than a dozen proposals, then 8, is now down to 3 moving forward in the State House. All 3 keep school-related property taxes in place, and they apply only to homesteads, that is the homeowner's primary residence. House Joint Resolution 203 proposes a phased-out approach to property taxes over the next 10 years. It's sponsored by Representative Monique Miller of Palm Bay. House Joint Resolution 213 caps the amount that local governments can increase the taxable value of the homestead to 3% over 3 years, instead of 3% every year. The bill's sponsor is Representative Griff Griffiths of Panama City Beach. House Joint Resolution 209 increases the homestead tax exemption by an additional $200,000 as long as that property is insured. The bill's sponsor is Representative Demi Busada of Coral Gables. And this is one that people are just following very closely because there's so much at stake here. Jackie, I'd like to ask you about these proposals. The one that I've received the most questions about is the Demi Busada proposal. And the question that I get is, why is it only for homeowners who have property insurance on the homestead?
Well, to me, that seems like we'd be handing a big win to insurers. We're saying that you can only get a tax break. You own a home and you're just like millions of others, but maybe are hundreds of thousands or thousands of others. Some people have paid their home off. They simply can't, maybe in the older population, they simply can't afford the $3,000 or $4,000 it costs to insure a home. I don't think people should be penalized if they're living in a paid-for piece of property and it is legal to self-insure your home, that you are penalized if that's the route you're going to take. I'd really rather see this be more equalized. So if we're going to get a reduction, and a lot of these, if you look at all 3 of these proposals, I think we're talking in many cases $1,000 to $1,600. So a significant savings, but not enough, I feel, that is going to break the bank of our local municipalities. And one other thing, I don't think you can talk about this without talking about the DOJ and what they've come out and said are these double-digit and increases year after year after year in the budgeting and the windfall that our counties have had. Now, this is what DOJ is saying. And you look, and if you look at the papers yourselves, you will see that some of our counties and municipalities have had windfalls with property taxes. Is there some waste? Can they afford to cut back and maybe not spend as much? And then there's a win-win for everyone, and the consumers get a slight break.
Critics have said that the DOJ conversations have set up the table for to eliminate property taxes.
And none of those resolutions are talking about that. We're really talking about a reduction, and can local governments afford a reduction? And also, if people are paying attention, you'll see when there's a public comment portion for some of these hearings, the only people showing up that are mainly showing up for these are the people from the municipalities. We haven't heard any homeowners saying, I'd really rather not save some money on my property insurance.
Catherine, so many speeches that the governor made over the past year have been about eliminating property taxes in Florida. Would this be a failure on a loss for him if something is moved forward, placed on the ballot that is not eliminating it altogether?
You know, that's an interesting question. I mean, he's never been very specific, right, about an actual plan. That has been the talking point, eliminating property taxes. Politicians will start with a grand sweeping, I want to eliminate this or get rid of this. And, most of the time it does kind of get hammered out in the details, and it's a little more measured than the, rhetoric at the beginning sort of started.